comedy special and pop song. It was unprecedented.
He's like a miracle.
From stand-up comic to big screen sex symbol. That's what they said. I didn't say it.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to talk about Netflix's new documentary, Being Eddie. The film is directed by Angus Wall and it features heavily, of course, Eddie Murphy, as well as people like Dave Chappelle, Jerry Seinfeld, his brother Charlie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, Tracy Morgan, Chris Rock, it goes on, John Landis, Adam Sandler, I mean it goes on and on and on. There's so many people in this documentary that talk about Eddie with such affection. You know, it really is a love fest, I suppose it's fair to say. Now, the documentary is a peek into Eddie Murphy's life. So it's filmed primarily in his mansion, so you get to see inside his house. There's a lot of Eddie Murphy talking about his career, his early life, you know, his growing up. And then, you know, his transition into stand-up, then the movie industry. And it's surrounded by all these people that adore him, revere him, people who he's heavily influenced, the people that I mentioned earlier, talking very affectionately about Eddie Murphy and the mark he has left and will leave on black culture and cinema in general. So if that's your kind of thing, you're going to enjoy this. If you're a fan of Eddie Murphy, you're going to enjoy this. If you're a fan of hard-hitting documentaries that kind of go through every nook and cranny of a person's life, then probably you'll be a little left wanting by this documentary. It's not a tell-all documentary, you know. It's not one of those documentaries that, you know, digs up dirt or, you know, is full of heartbreak or anything like that, because there's not been a great deal of that in Eddie Murphy's life. If you watch this, there's a reason why you've never really seen Eddie Murphy in a scandal ever in his career. Not a major scandal, you know, like some of these famous people that, you know, they get addicted to drugs, alcohol, you know, painkillers, you know, they have marriages, divorces in the public eye, you know, affairs, all this kind of stuff. None of it. There's none of this from Eddie Murphy. Now, granted, he might have had a few partners over the years and marriages, but the partner he's with now, I think he's been with her 14, 15 years, it says in the documentary. He's got 10 kids. He absolutely loves and adores his children. He says everything he does is for his children. He has not been in any real scandals. He has kind of played it down the middle. He talks about it in the documentary, the fact that, you know, he was kind of shocked in the 80s when he was taken to parties and there were just cocaine on the table and this kind of stuff, and he never partook. He says the first time I smoked marijuana I was 30. So he's not that guy. He's not that kind of person. He's very centered, and he was very frank in the documentary, and I thought this was brilliant. He says, and the reason why I don't do any of those things, and I've never done any of those things, is because I love myself too much. And I think that's a massive statement, in a sense of, you know, a lot of these people that probably do get addicted to this, that and the other, there's something missing in their life, or they don't love themselves, whereas he was very clear, and he didn't say it in an egotistical way or anything like that. He didn't come across like that at all in this documentary. He came across as a naturally funny man with some profound things to say, and I really enjoyed this documentary because of that. Not because it was hard hitting, not because it went through every nook and cranny of his life. It was, you know, him just sat down having a conversation with us about his life and his career, and everybody else that he's influenced or has been a part of his life talking about him as well. And I thought that was great. I love the fact that from a very young age, he was a very, very confident young man. He knew what he wanted to be, you know, and he was doing stand-up so young, got into Saturday Night Live so young. he explained that when he got into Saturday Night Live, it was literally after the old school had just left. You know, the Dan Aykroyds and the Chevy Chases and Bill Murrays and that kind of stuff. They'd all gone. It was a new cast, and he was part of it, and it didn't go down well initially. Nobody liked them. He says that was really tough to start with. And then obviously he's breaking to the cinema with 48 Hours, and then Trading Places, and then Beverly Hills Cop. I mean, and he was just a megastar from such a young age, and it didn't dictate who he was going to be. You know what I mean? He didn't go off the rails or any of that kind of stuff. He said, yes, there's kind of a lot of yes men around him in those days that were saying, yeah, you can be a pop star, you're brilliant. You know, and that kind of stuff maybe influenced him, but the negative side didn't really influence him. I loved how he affectionately talked about people like Richard Pryor, who obviously was a massive influence on his career, and that he got to work with him on Harlem Nights. That I think is a chronically underrated in Eddie Murphy film. I think that was the first film where the critics tore him to pieces. It was almost like, it's your time now. We're going after you. And I remember at the time when that came out, I remember watching it for the first time. I didn't go to the cinema to see Harlem Nights. I'm fairly sure of that. I think I might have been too young. I can't remember. But I remember the reviews of it. And at that time, I was a fan of Eddie Murphy, even then. And I remember watching it thinking, what are they talking about? This is actually really funny. I really enjoyed it. It's a really good period piece. With some fantastic comedy, and it was directed by Eddie Murphy as well. I do think it's massively underrated. I might actually do a misunderstood movie review for that. So he talks about the ups in his career, but he was also quite happy to talk about the downs in his career. The fact that when he was when he did that film Dreamgirls and he got Oscar nominated, Norbit came out just before the Oscars, sort of thing, that kind of dirtied his ticket, he says. So he's very honest and he's very frank, and he says, look, he says, anybody that's been in the industry as long as I have, you're going to make some bad stuff. And he acknowledges that, you know what I mean? But he does it in such a fun, humorous way that it's hard not to, you know, feel a real connection to him, you know what I mean? He's not overly fussed. You know, he's not even overly fussed to work. He says, I don't necessarily look forward to working. I'd rather just hang out here with my family and my kids. But he kind of does it. If something kind of moves him, he's kind of like, okay, well, I'll do that now. So, I mean, I had a good time with this. It was a real fun documentary. It's one of those documentaries that you'll watch with a smile on your face, and it'll definitely make you giggle. With some of the memories that it'll bring up from Eddie Murphy films, but also just Eddie Murphy being interviewed and talking on screen current day, because he's just so naturally funny. And you can't help but find him funny when he's just talking about his life, his career, and everything else. So, yeah, if you're a fan of Eddie Murphy, this is absolutely a no-brainer. Everybody else, if you want to watch this because you're a fan of documentaries but you don't really care about Eddie Murphy, you'll probably find issues with it, but I had a good time with it, so yeah, I do recommend it. So thanks for checking out this review, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back with more content on the channel very, very soon.